Mantis Q40 Physical Overview.
Hello everyone, John for CATT Northwest here. Today we're going to be doing a physical overview of the APH Mantis Q40. So hopefully you already know what you're getting into. The Q in Q40 stands for QWERTY, because this device is a bit unique in that it has a QWERTY keyboard on it rather than a Perkin-style Braille keyboard. Most your average, refreshable Braille display usually is going to have a Braille keyboard, and so this one is a little bit unique having that QWERTY option. Now I should say, this is going to be a compact QWERTY keyboard. So this is much more like what you'd find on maybe a smaller laptop. You're definitely not going to get like your keypad and your 6-pack and things like that. So it's a little bit compact, and because it's the compact style and may vary just a little bit, we're going to go ahead and go through all the buttons, even though I realize probably your average person understands touch typing and understands the QWERTY keyboard, but we're just going to breeze through these buttons anyhow for the sake of being thorough, because especially some of the function keys have dual functions when you use the function button, for example. So we're going to go ahead and run through these. So okay, starting with our very tip top row, our function row there, we're going to have our function keys starting in the very tip top left. We're going to start with escape. Of course, that's normal on every single QWERTY keyboard. Then working our way to the right, we have F1, then F2, F3, F4, F5, F6, F7, F8, F9, F10, F11, F12, and finally on that row we have delete in the very tip top right. Now backtracking for just a second, in print, these are dual labeled. F9, F10, F11, F12 have a secondary function to them when used in conjunction with the function button. So the function button, although we will cover this in just a moment as well, just to give you reference, the function button is on the very bottom row, so your space bar row, and it is one key in from the far left. So very far bottom left-hand corner is going to be your control key. Just in from that, working your way to the right is going to be your function button. So if you held function and then pressed F9, that would be an insert. If you held function, pressed F10, that would be a print screen. Hold function, press F11, that would be a screen lock, and hold function F12, that would be the pause button on maybe a larger size QWERTY keyboard. So again, those are a few things that work together with the function buttons. Now I should mention though, the function keys are starting to become more and more popular, especially with some of the laptops where not everybody makes a whole lot of use out of the function keys, and so they've dual purposed them. So like you may find F1 and F2, for example, might change your volume. F3 and F4 might change your screen brightness, things of that nature, or be a mute maybe. And those usually work together with the function key. So pretty common on newer laptops nowadays. So this device all by itself just kind of has those four, F9, F10, F11, F12, those four that work natively on board the device kind of with the function key. Your laptop that you're connecting to could have additional functions using the function key, so just kind of keep that in mind. All right, jumping to our second row, I believe it's called a tilde. It's that little squiggly line, and there's also an accent. Then we have our 1, which of course with shift is exclamation point, 2 with at, 3 with pound or our number sign, 4 with $sign, 5 with %, 6 with the little up caret, 7 with and, 8 with asterisk, 9 with open parenthesis, 0 with close parentheses. Then we have the button that is a underscore or a minus/hyphen. Then we have our next button, which is the plus/equals, and then we have our backspace button for deleting characters. Jumping down to our third row, again working our way from left to right, we have tab. Then we have Q, W, E, R, T, Y. In case people didn't know how QWERTY keyboards got their names, it's because of Q, W, E, R, T, Y right there on the keyboard, QWERTY. Then we have after Y, we have U, I, O, P. Then we have the brackets button. So I forget the technical name for them, but it's the squiggly brackets and the square brackets. We have the open button, and then we have the next button is the closed version of the squiggly or the square, depending on whether you press shift. Then we have our bar or backslash button, depending on whether you press shift. Down to the fourth row, we will have caps lock, A, S, D, F, G, H, J, K, L. Then we have our colon, semicolon, and colon. Then we have our quote/single quote, and we have our enter key. Next line, we have Shift, Z, X, C, V, B, N, M. Then we have our less than sign with comma. We have our greater than sign with period. We have our question slash with slash slash. Then we have our Shift button. Then on the bottom row, we have Control, Function, Windows, Alt, then your long space bar, another Alt, another Control, and then we have our arrow keys there. We have left and right, then we have up and down in the center of those. The left and right have a little bit of a gap between them and the up and down, but the up and down almost feel like one button with the exception of a little break in the middle, and that's your arrow keys. Now, a couple just navigational kind of things. We'll have a separate video on more in-depth navigation, but your up and down arrows, for example, can be used for navigating up and down your menu. Your enter can be used for selecting things, and your escape button can be used for going back. And so just a couple little commands there for you. Now below your QWERTY keyboard, you have your 40 cell braille display. The 40 being where the Q40, the 40 part on Q40 and Mantis Q40 comes from, because you have a 40 cell braille display there. Now you'll notice above each one of your characters, you have those little round bumps. These are of course your cursor router keys. These can be clicked and they double as an enter to select things, or of course when editing or writing text, they can be used for moving your cursor around. That's going to be it for our top face of the machine. Let's go ahead and move to the front edge. On the front edge here, trying to get this in frame a little bit, on the front edge we have 5 buttons total. On the far right, far left, you're going to have 2 smaller rectangular buttons. The one on the left being the previous thumb key, the one on the right being the next thumb key. These are used for navigating up and down through menus and lists. Just in from those, but still one on the right, one on the left, you'll have 2 longer rectangular bars there, or longer rectangular buttons, excuse me. These are used for panning or shifting or scrolling, whatever you want to call it, your braille display. So as you're reading along, you get done with the first 40 characters. You can press the one on the right to pan you or scroll you to the next set of 40. You can press the one on the left to pan you or shift you or sort of rewind your braille to the previous set of 40 to continue reading along that line, sentence, paragraph, whatever you're reading. In the center, you have a little round button. This is your home button. So if you give that one press when you're in the device's menus, it will take you right back to the top of your main menu. If you are connected as a screen reader, so say you're connected to a computer, perhaps a device with a voiceover like an iPad or iPhone, if you're actively connected to those, you can press that button. Rather than taking you home, it will first pop you into the list of connected devices, which you could scroll down and choose a different device and kind of sort of toggle back and forth between multiple simultaneously connected devices. If you were to press it again when you got back to your connection list, then it would actually take you home. So basically 99% of the time this acts as a home button, with the exception being when you're actively connected to a device with a screen reader, then first one press will take you to your list of connected devices where you could choose another one, or press it a second time to go all the way back to your main menu. All right, switching gears over to our left-hand edge of our device. It's a little bit hard to fit on frame here, but we're going to give it a try. And so starting with kind of the top or back, if you will, and working our way towards the front on that left edge, we first have a USB-C port here for charging. Of course, USB-C becoming more and more standard these days. The nice part about that is it can be plugged in right side up or upside down, just a little easier type to plug in there. This also is how you would be how you charge your device, but would also be how you connect it to a computer as well. So it can be used as a screen reader over USB rather than Bluetooth if you want to. Of course, it does have Bluetooth on board the device too, so it's an either or. But if you want to connect over USB to a screen reader, that's how you can do it. Also, when you're connected to your computer, it will pop up the internal file structure on this device, a lot like if you had connected a USB thumb drive, and you can drag and drop or copy and paste files to and from the device. So if you wrote something you want to put on your computer, you could copy it from the internal device to your computer. If you have a book or something on your computer that you want to put on the device, you can do so from that connection. Down from that, a little bit below that cutout for the USB-C port, this is not overly tactile, to be honest with you. I have my case on, and the case sort of kind of covers up the power button a little bit. It is slightly tactile, so you should be able to feel it, but it kind of just feels like a bump in the case. That's going to be where your power button is, and that's, of course, if you have the case. If you take the case off, then, of course, that power button is a little bit more tactile, I'll say. But underneath there is going to be your power button. You can press and hold that to turn your device on. So give it about a 1, 2, 3 hold, and you'll notice a little vibration. Your device should say starting up on the braille display. And then if it is on, you want to shut it down, you can hold it again for about a 1, 2, 3, and you'll be greeted with a power off menu, which you can scroll down and say, okay, yes, I do want to power off, or you can hit the cancel button to not power off if you want to. Below that power button, I should say one more thing about that power button. That power button, while the device is on, can be quickly pressed rather than holding to put your device to sleep or wake it up from sleep, which of course, just like locking and unlocking the screen on your cell phone or something like that, is much faster than turning the device on from being all the way off. Now, after the power button there, we have a full-sized USB port. This is just your standard kind of rectangular USB. This can be used for USB thumb drives to either transfer files to and from the device or even read or save files right to the thumb drive from there. All right, that's it for the left-hand side. Now let's go ahead and jump over to the right, and I'm showing you this because mostly to show you there is nothing there. Not very interesting, nothing on the right-hand side. Shifting to the back, there is really only one thing on the back to worry about here, and that is an SD card slot. This is a full-sized SD card slot. That would be in case you want to pop in a memory card to kind of expand your device's storage. You can also basically use it as an alternative to a USB thumb drive if you would like. But your device has 16 gigabytes of built-in memory on board the device, and in this world of smartphones, 16 gigabytes doesn't necessarily sound like a whole heck of a lot. But actually, when you're talking about a Braille display, and you have text documents that maybe you wrote or saved, you maybe have books that are really truthfully text files as well. 16 gigabytes actually goes a really long ways because text files are quite small. Usually on people's cell phones and things like that, it's pictures, videos, and apps that are soaking up most of that storage space in this whole world of terabyte iPhones, So with this, you basically just pop in a memory card if you need a little extra storage beyond the 16 gigabytes. Perhaps you're somebody who would love to have all, their whole book library on there, then you can pop in an SD card for that. Now, again, I'm not going to take off the case, so I'm really just showing you the bottom, which is blank. But if you do take off the case, in the bottom, basically back center-ish, you will have your device's serial number should you need to reference that as well. All right, you all, that is a physical overview of all the buttons and their functions on the Mantis Q40 from APH, and we'll catch you in the next one.
CATT, Center for Assistive Technology Training Northwest.
The CATT program is funded by a federal appropriation and works in partnership with the American Printing House for the Blind and Alabama Institute for the Deaf and Blind. Logos: APH, AIDB, and WSSB